Talking Blue Jays with Keegan Matheson of MLB.com. Hello, Blue Jays fans. Welcome back to another week of Blue Jays Talk. We're so glad you're tuning in. As always, we've got an excellent episode for you this week. We're going to sit down with MLB.com's Keegan Matheson and pick his brain on all things Toronto Blue Jays. It's going to be a great episode. And before we get rolling here, I want to take a second to remind you that we're partnering with Left Field Brewery, and we've got a special deal going on there. But before we get into that deal, I want to let you know that Left Field, they're playing their first pitch bingo. It's going on all over the first couple of weeks of the season, and you can follow along as you're playing, give a little screenshot, send in what you've got, things like your pitch clock run out, home plate lady sighting, Bo Bichette hair flip, and all of that stuff. Lots of great, I guess, fun, really. It's what it comes down to. And when you play this, you have a chance of winning one of 4 first pitch prize packs valued at $150. We're talking beer, ice cold beer merchandise and apparel, fan club points, and game tickets. It's a whole lot of fun. So join Left Field Brewery as well. Go to fanshop.leftfieldbrewery.ca. Fill out your cart, throw a koozie in there, and use the code From the Couch, and that koozie is free. Just a little gift from Jays from the Couch to our listeners. Enjoy. And don't forget our Facebook group, Blue Jays Talk for All. Join our Facebook group, and you can take part in our game chats live. It's a lot of fun. Shoot the you-know-what with Jays from the Couch, writers and listeners and readers. It's a great time. And don't forget, we are spending this season, like all of our seasons, and we're taking on ALS. We have started a few years ago, actually, but it's been something that has grown exponentially, and we're really proud of the work that we do here at Jays from the Couch fighting ALS. You can make a charitable donation, a tax-deductible donation, going to support.alsevents.ca/Jays from the Couch and help us reach our goal fighting this disease. But if you're somebody who likes to get a little something for your money, don't worry, you can head over to our Redbubble shop. All things Jays from the Couch, On Fact Circle, Sunny Side of the Dome, Jays from the Couch Radio, all of that merchandise, and 100% of the profits goes directly to the ALS Society of Canada. All right, like I said, we've got a great episode for you this week, and to help get me started, we've got host of the On Fact Circle, Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Steve Feck, the Feckless Wonder. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Shaun. How are you?
I am doing just peachy. I always love when Keegan joins us, so I'm extra excited today. And as well, Sunny Side of the Dome comes at you Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. It's the one and only Karen Suter. Good evening, Karen.
Good evening, Shaun. Good evening, Steve.
All right. Everybody's doing well because we're about to bring in our guest, and I hope you will give him the warm Jays from the Couch welcome. Keegan Matheson of MLB.com. Good evening to you, sir. How you doing?
You know what? Every year or so when I'm back with you all, Shaun, the show is just a little fancier. The production quality is cranking up. It's Oscar worthy. I love it and I appreciate it because when I was coming through journalism school and getting into the industry, I was very stubborn. You know, I know how to write. I don't know how to do anything else. I can barely shorten a video. I certainly cannot do all of this. So I love it. I love the production value.
Well, back when we first started, Keegan, I couldn't do any of this either. If you recall, it was pretty bad.
Back in the days of Skype, I have not.
That's right.
Skype was really ahead of its time. You know, Skype. Some guy who invested in Skype has to be looking at Zoom right now and just cursing them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. All those dropped calls, it serves them right.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, all right, Keegan, thanks for taking your time coming on the Jays from the Couch podcast. We really do appreciate it. I'm going to hit you with some minor league stuff first. And what can you tell us actually about the Blue Jays minor league system with regard to the unionization of the players and all of that? And you know, because it kind of feels like Toronto got a bit of a head start with the, you know, offering better pay and whatnot, right? So what can you tell us about, I guess, how things are looking this season?
Yeah, Toronto was a little bit ahead on that. A few organizations were a couple of years back raising minor league salaries, but the reaction, if you were to show the new minor league CBA and those salaries, AAA, AA, single, to anybody who's not a hardcore baseball fan, their reaction is still that's what they make. Still, it's still not a massive amount, but it's so good to see that. Number one, because of money. We like to, distract from money. I always think of when you're going to apply for a job, you're in an interview, they say, oh, we have beanbag chairs, we have beer on Friday. People care about money, period.
Yep.
That's how you make me happy. That's how you make most people happy. More money. I'll buy my own beanbag chair. I don't care. So money is what this starts with and ends with. That's good. Hopefully there's room for that to continue growing in the years that come. But when you speak to guys, even who are in the major leagues, even some of these players who have had bonuses, who came in with a little bit of money, the stories of these guys living in one-bedroom houses, two guys to a room, one guy in the closet. It's, they had money, they had food. It was not, an impoverished situation. It's not comparing it to that, but it was nowhere near what it should be for organizations that have tens, hundreds of millions of dollars. So you're seeing that come a little closer to normal. The Blue Jays were out in front of that, so they look good in that sense. But man, oh man, it's a life-changing day for a lot of these guys. Now, if you are from Florida or California, you grew up in a family that's got some money, maybe there's some privilege built in. You can try to stretch your career a few years. If you grew up in a poor family, if you are the moneymaker in your family, like a lot of these young men are, this maybe lets you chase that big league dream till age 24, 25, 26, when before you give up and get a job. So I think that's going to be the main benefit, is kind of extending the runway that some of these young guys have. The guys who are not mega stars, those guys will get paid anyways, but the guys who get caught in the middle.
Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of people miss out on when they're talking about Major League Baseball or any really professional athlete. I think they kind of assume that the fame and the money and all that comes with it, but there's a lot of guys who are having trouble meeting and I guess having ends meet, right? So yeah, it's a good sign for sure. Keegan, I want to talk about Rogers Center. A small amount of change was spent to renovate the Rogers Center. Nothing big. I want to ask you, how do you think the changes impact the day-to-day playing experience? And I guess the other part of that is who will the new wall dimensions benefit the most, and who will they hurt the most?
Yeah, we're looking at this today at MLB Network and with a story on our site, and it's important I note that this is from people smarter than me. I'm just the writer's face who puts some words to it. But our StatCast crew at MLB.com, who are incredible, they ran the numbers on this. So what they did, in terms that I can understand at least, is take every single batted ball from 2022 and put it onto the new map. Mm-hmm. And the numbers they came up with there, it was 26 home runs were created. So 26 balls last year that stayed in now go out. There were 7 balls last year that went out that now stay in. So the number that matters is that there were 19 home runs created. And that's likely created. Maybe there was a gust of wind that day. I don't know. But 19-ish home runs created. Now, that's going to benefit both teams. It's like every time this team is in New York and people are upset about a cheap home run by the Yankees, hit one yourself. I don't care. Same dimensions for everybody. That will benefit both teams. The player we found who it will benefit most compared to last year is Matt Chapman. Now, he is a guy who, when he puts the ball in the air, it's really in the air. Mm-hmm. On the other side, maybe a guy like Vladdy, maybe some of those low liners get knocked down. We'll see. But Matt Chapman had a lot of fly balls to the warning track last year. And our numbers done by our StatCast team showed that 3 of his doubles would have been home runs last year, which would have put him at 30. Nice round number. So I think generally speaking, the people who will benefit from this are people who hit high, deep fly balls. And someone like Chapman, who wasn't quite getting it out last year, he's who benefits.
Mhm.
In terms of guys who it hurts, maybe somebody like Vladdy who hits the low liners, but Vladdy's in a league of his own with power. If there was someone who hits the low ball but not with as much power, maybe him. I think if you are a fly ball pitcher, you are not loving this. That's not a great place to be. And beyond that, I think when we talk about advantages, I don't think it benefits the Blue Jays or hurts them. They're playing in the same park other teams are. It will benefit them defensively, I think. Think of the Green Monster. Think of Talus Hill. Think of all these little things that we've accepted as normal. If you showed baseball to a sports fan who's never seen baseball, they're thinking, why the hell can you make the stadiums different sizes? This is not how it would work. Those little quirks, it's why every time I go with the Blue Jays to Fenway Park, there are 2 or 3 outfielders out taking balls off the Green Monster for an hour because it's weird. It's strange. Whereas Boston's left fielder knows how it works. That will turn into Rogers Center as well, and that'll save you a run or two over the course of a year because Kevin Kiermaier or Dalton Varsho will know on that scorching line drive that's going to hit the wall, so I've got to be over here. And there are going to be so many unique angles on these walls. It's going to be chaotic. It's going to be a little messy, I think, in a good way. But across the board, I think it's a wash with more home runs, which means we all win because home runs are cool. But defensively is where the Blue Jays can get that little bit of an edge. Maybe it steals you a game every few years with a defensive play.
Right. And can Keegan, maybe you can get us a clarification on that rule. If Vladdy's hitting all of those kind of liner home runs, if it still counts, if it just goes through the wall, right? Like,
I think so.
I think it's got to count, right?
Yeah.
All right, we'll count it. Done. All right, Karen, you're up.
Hi, Keegan.
Hey,
I was wondering, so as we all know, there were lots of changes to this team in the offseason, and we've had a bit of a chance now through spring training and 10 games to get a look at where they're at. Do you get a sense that the Jays front office sees the team the way it's currently constructed as a finished product? And if you don't think so, do you believe that there's a particular area that they are most interested in trying to upgrade? For example, rotation, bullpen, offense, so forth.
I think they view the team as good enough for now, which sounds a little flimsy, and I don't mean it to, but every single year, Ross Atkins or Mark Shapiro or someone else in the front office, it happens to me 5 times a year where they'll go out of their way to say, okay, well, this is just opening day. And that usually comes when I'm talking about the bullpen. And it's helpful to remind myself of that. I'm agonizing on my 10th story about who's going to be the 8th guy in the bullpen. It never matters. It's going to be different by tomorrow, probably. So when we look at those last roster spots, there's so much change. So I think the Blue Jays like where they're at now. If they are going to make a legitimate run, they need to load up. Definitely. Now, rotation, we'll see. Who is Hyun-Jin Ryu 4 months from now? Who is Ricky Tiedemann 4 months from now? Who on earth is Jose Berrios 4 months from now? I don't know. I do not know. But there's a lot of questions in the rotation that I think time can take care of. And we'll have a much clearer picture in July. When you look at the offense, let's see what happens on the Brandon Belt front. Is he going to turn into the bat you need him to be? If so, it's a fine lineup. Maybe you add a bench guy who fills a need, whatever. But if Brandon Belt can be who you want him to be, great. If he's not, you need to go find another Brandon Belt, a big lefty bat maybe. And then the bullpen as well. I think it's always going to be the bullpen. No matter how good this group is, and I like them this year, you add Eric Swanson, you move Jimmy Garcia around, who I think is so underrated. I really like Jimmy Garcia. But I think back to that game between the Astros and the Mariners last year that went 19 innings. And I selfishly remember that very vividly because that was my last game of the year. The Jays were out. We flew me to Seattle to be a kind of a second reporter for the Mariners. We double up in the playoffs. So if that game ended, my year was over. And love baseball, but I love my year being over. And I always remember that game going 19 innings. And I'll always remember every single reliever coming out of that bullpen being absolutely excellent. So at some point, it's great to have Jordan Romano. It's great to have Eric Swanson, Jimmy Garcia. Call that 2 closers and a really good setup guy, depending on how it works out. You're going to need one more. You need another really elite back-end closer. And that's assuming all of these guys pitch well this year. They're relievers. Who knows? So there's some tinkering, but I think that you can at least rest pretty easy with the lineup right now. Maybe you tinker, but the starting rotation is the big one for me. Right now it's Kevin Gossman, who I think could compete for the Cy Young this year. It's Alek Manoah, who I think will have a good year. And then it's a lot of we'll see over the next few months.
Right. Quick follow-up question. Are we at all close to seeing Mitch White anytime soon?
Yeah, he'll be throwing some more bullpens in Florida, I think, soon. His last update was last week. He was starting to throw 20, 30 pitches at a time. And at this point, it's a question of how the Blue Jays build him back up. Do you want a number 6 starting pitcher? Is Mitch White going to be that guy? Or is that someone else in AAA? Is that a Zach Thompson or is that a Yusei Kikuchi? We'll see. Or do you want a traditional long man in the bullpen? Because all spring, I wrote it 1,000 times. It's Yusei Kikuchi versus Mitch White. Winners in the rotation, losers in the bullpen. Throws 3 innings at a time, whenever you need. So we'll see where the Blue Jays are when he makes his way back. But that's an uphill climb for him now, because since he was out of action during the spring, I never want to say that an injury hurts a guy's chances, especially a young guy who's talented. But it certainly took away his opportunity to make a good impression in spring. And Mitch White did not put up good numbers last year. We can't pretend he did. So he's got to earn his way back into that, whichever role it is.
Got it. Thanks.
All right, Steve, you're up.
Always good to have you here, Keegan. Just so you know, all the bells and whistles generally are put in to distract people from all the dopey things that I generally say and ask. So that's why Shaun's had to step up his game a little bit. I was wondering, are you buying the company line that John Schneider keeps putting out there, that they're not going to utilize Dalton Varsho as a late inning catcher option, in those close games when they're tinkering? Are you really buying that? Or do you go along with me where you think that they're just kind of blowing some smoke there, throw some of the opposing manager out there, and eventually he is going to see some, I want to say regular time in late innings as a catcher, but do you think they're going to utilize that versatility?
Yeah, he's with every passing game, I think they become more terrified to do it because you're seeing how good Varsho can be. The tell for me was in spring training when even as the Blue Jays, catchers in spring training are a real commodity. Like if you are a catcher in spring training, you get to play with the big leaguers because it's like trying to find a goalie for pickup hockey. There's not enough catchers, period. And even so, I did not see Dalton Varsho take any reps at catcher or get any work in at catcher. So right now, I think that the only time you see him is as an emergency guy. And if a catcher were to go down right now, it's Rob Brantley up from AAA, I think, pretty quickly. But if you're late in the season, let's say you have a catcher at DH, a catcher behind the plate, maybe you consider Dalton Varsho. Maybe he has a secret bag of catcher's gear locked away somewhere I've not seen. But at least in spring training, wasn't part of the conversation. And the better he looks in the outfield, I think the more scared this organization will be to have him down in a crouch because he's built like a catcher. My God, he is built like a catcher. He is not built like the person who moves like you see on the screen. It's there's always some generous heights listed, and he's a really stocky built guy. He moves incredibly well, and he's looked so good early on. I think the Blue Jays just want him in left field. He could be one of, if not baseball's best left fielders this year.
Absolutely agree.
All right, Keegan, I'm going to hit you with this. So when Steve mentioned the versatility, and when you look at this Blue Jays lineup, has the front office accomplished a more versatile order? Was it really all about lefty bats? Like, is that all it took? And now all of a sudden this is like a really balanced lineup?
Yeah, the lefties make it look a lot better. And baseball is reaching the point where it's exhausting me with versatility. Versatility is good. Do not get me wrong. It's great. But I dream of where teams just have a few players who play one position. That's why I look at Vladdy and Bo Bichette and Matt Chapman, and I think, my God, what an ode to the past this is. It's just so refreshing. Right. But when it can benefit you, great. And I think we're seeing the right amount of versatility with the Blue Jays right now. When you look at someone like Whit Merrifield, now that's somebody who is being moved around strategically to gain advantages instead of a guy that's being moved around just to play places. Now, you have Whit Merrifield at second base. If there's a righty on the mound, fantastic. You feel good. When a lefty is on the mound, you have to get Espinal in the lineup somehow. He kills lefties. That's when you can take Merrifield, put him out in left, and then maybe get rid of Kiermaier for a day. I know he's off to a hot start, but he's not Barry Bonds. We know this. So you're seeing sensible flexibility there, and that's a good thing. But at a certain point, it's not that you can have too much, but you would rather have somebody who does one thing really well. I think we got into this conversation with Otto Lopez and Nathan Lucas for the last spot on the roster. Otto Lopez's versatility a couple of years ago would have been an absolute dream at the bottom of this roster. I'm still surprised he did not make the roster, probably because there just wasn't enough playing time. They don't want him sitting there. But the Blue Jays to the point where they didn't really need much more versatility. They had every position covered once, if not twice. So they're definitely where they want to be in terms of versatility. But I think of this a lot doing prospect work, that when I come across a prospect and their position just says second base, I think, oh my God, hallelujah. It doesn't say second base / shortstop / right field. It's, eventually you got to do one well.
Right. And so then the natural follow-up question there, Keegan, is where does that leave Cavan Biggio?
Man, in a weird place, but still getting playing time. It surprised me to see him out there I think 2 of the first 4 games at second base. And I really believe in Biggio as a player, and that's relative. I wrote this 1,000 times over the years. The young core of Vladdy, Bo, and Cavan Biggio. That probably did Cavan a disservice. And that was part of the narrative. They had the famous last names, and that took off. Cavan Biggio as an all-star second baseman? No, I'm not doing that. Cavan Biggio is a guy who moves around and takes some walks, puts together good at-bats, has a great eye, plays some good defense, and is underratedly an excellent base runner. Sure. Right. Why not? Right. Is that OPS going to be 670? Maybe. He needs to hit for a bit more power, because then pitchers will start taking him seriously again. We'll see if that comes. But at the same time, this is a good team. So if Biggio stumbles, boom, Addison Barger, Otto Lopez, easy. They're coming. And I don't think the Blue Jays have had those types of players ready in a while. They've had Vladdy and they've had Bo, but those are guys who kick the door down and take control. Now you can look at Barger, Otto Lopez, and I think Biggio is kind of a competition, really. And you've got to give them some runway. You need to give Biggio a while, and maybe he runs away with this, but he's in an interesting spot. And I think one thing that's helping him for sure is that this organization loves who he is as a cerebral player, someone who thinks the game. Like I've said this before, if you put Cavan Biggio's brain in everyone's body, you win the World Series, I think. Like, he is a really sharp player, and just hearing him talk about baseball makes me smarter. But you need to be able to hit the high 98. You need to be able to every day contribute. We've seen some good moments from him so far. I hope that does continue. But it's not a simple situation. If there's a rough stretch, if that average drops, if he's having trouble defensively, there are options now. And that's a harsh reality for him, but a very good reality for the Blue Jays.
Yeah, for sure. We're talking with MLB.com's Keegan Matheson. Always great work at MLB.com. And of course, anytime we have a chat with them, it's always great. Keegan, we've each got one more for you, and then I'm going to have some fun hit you with a rapid fire section. Yeah, really test the old gray matter there. But I've got one more for you, and then I'll hand it over to Steve and Karen. And Keegan, there are a whole lot of mysteries in life. you know, the massive images and fields all over South America. Jimmy Hoffa, the mystery that is Jose Berrios. So what is going on with him? And more importantly, how are they going to solve this problem?
I would love to know. If I knew, I would be making more money tomorrow, and you would see me walking down King Street to the ballpark wearing a Blue Jays polo and a quarter zip athleisure wear and Lululemon slacks, the official outfit of a front office.
Yes, please.
It is baffling me. And I've compared it a lot to Yusei Kikuchi last year, because if you sat down and watched one inning, you don't need to watch the whole start, one inning of Yusei Kikuchi, you'd think, whoa, this guy cannot hit the strike zone. It must be going poorly. You could watch an inning of Berrios and think he's great. Maybe you watch the wrong inning and he looks terrible. But he was not hitting guys in the head. He was not spiking curveballs. He was not losing 5 miles an hour velocity. It seemed like it was very small what was happening. And that can be very frustrating, because something to know about Jose is he really cared. And I don't mean that in a light and flimsy way. Like, I think it really affected him last year. And he's someone who just signed a $131 million contract. And he's someone who takes these things to heart. And I mean, if I owe someone $5, I've got anxiety. If I sign a $131 million deal with somebody and I'm pitching to the worst ERA in baseball, that's going to get me in the chest a little bit. So understandable. Then you see him show up at the WBC this year. Woof, it was terrible. You see him in the early outings this year, some of those same problems. Now, the Blue Jays have adjusted expectations. You have to live in reality. He's not going to be a 3.4 ERA guy as your number 2. Thankfully, you found Alek Manoah, who is still cheap, and you're balancing that. But there's a ton of money in this rotation, a ton of money in the rotation. And you need Berrios to figure it out, because if he doesn't, then you absolutely need Kikuchi to figure it out. Everyone's getting nervous at this point. There's not a ton of rotation depth in this organization. Most teams don't have a ton. If you do, that might mean you're still on the come up. The Blue Jays have a Zach Thompson, Drew Hutchison, Thomas Hatch, eventually Ricky Tiedemann and Hyun-Jin Ryu, but nobody who's kicking down the door right now. So Berrios has got to figure it out, and it's getting frustrating for the team to watch, surely, and it's got to be frustrating for Jose, because my worry is that he gets stuck in what he got stuck in last year, which was this swing of adjustments back and forth. And after every start, it's why I try not to overreact. And it's one of the many ways this team is covered that annoys me, without pulling the curtain back too much. But Jose will go out, or Kikuchi will go out and pitch 6 innings of 2-run ball, and afterwards say, well, I was working on a new cutter. All we see for a week is graphs and long rambles and percentages about this new cutter. Other teams can figure it out too. If you are in the game of swinging adjustment to adjustment in season, you're toast. You're going to lose. And we saw that with both Berrios and Kikuchi last year. Sometimes it was mechanics. Sometimes it was moving where they stood on the rubber just a bit. Sometimes it was more or less of a pitch. And if you have that on your mind, it's rough. So I hate dumbing it down like this, but I think Jose Berrios just needs to go pitch and go play baseball. It wasn't by accident what he did in Minneapolis for those years with the Twins.
Right.
To do that for 5 years is incredible. And that's why he earned that contract. I don't believe in rewriting history. I thought it was a great deal. Great contract. I wrote it. I said it everywhere. I can't scrub it from the internet now, so I've got to go down with it. But it's amazing how quickly things change. Yeah. And, logically, you think it's got to turn around. For him as a person, because I can see every day how he feels about this, you hope from a human level it turns around from him.
Right.
But there's always a chance it doesn't. Baseball is not here to make you feel good most of the time. And, man, it's getting a little nervous for Berrios.
Yeah, right. All right, Steve, over to you.
Well, since Shaun took my Jose Berrios question, I guess I'll return to my favorite subject, and that's Los Atkins. Now that James Click is on board, do you see Click really kind of taking over the draft and working more closely within minor league operations, or do you think that this is just a stepping stone to have Click take in Ross's situation and Ross maybe moving over to the business end and working closely with Mark Shapiro?
I think we'll see it pretty similar to Ben Sherrington this year. With an executive this decorated, coming from a World Series, and the completely bizarre way that all ended for him with ownership there, I think he hangs around Toronto, sits in on a lot of meetings, legitimately helps them, and gets hired real soon somewhere else. I think this is a good move for the Blue Jays because they get a good baseball mind, sure, but pretty smart for Click as well, because if he went and hid with the Kansas City Royals, well, what if the Royals win 58 games? You can't really say what you did there. But if he comes and sits in with the Blue Jays for a year, they win 95 games, go to the ALCS, whatever happens, it's a little easier to stay up high on the radar for people. And I think that Click, once he gets a fresh shot at the GM hiring cycle, will be pretty sought after. I'd expect him to have some involvement on the draft side, on player development as well. But I'm trying to think of his baseball titles give me an aneurysm these days. They're so long. Oh my goodness, they're so long. And with every word added, they mean less and less to me. But he's legitimately, in that front office day to day, a very real part of it. It's not just a name in a parking spot. But I think he is maybe not going to be with the team for a decade. Is the best way I'd put it.
Karen, over to you.
Hey. So, an interesting season in the early going. I'd say there's lots of players who've been doing very well, fortunately. One player that has unfortunately stood out for all the wrong reasons is Brandon Belt. We touched on him briefly earlier. Yes, Steve, thank you. So as we all know that he has struggled, what I'm wondering is, what do you see as far as how long is the front office going to stick with him? How long of a leash will they give him to keep running him out there in the starting lineup? And then if they decide to make a change, how do you see that happening? Would they just keep him around and bench him? I know he's only on a 1-year deal. Like, would they eat that money and DFA him to clear a roster spot? What do you think?
Yeah, this is going to be an awkward one unless he turns around fast, because if this was I'm trying to think of a prospect. Let's say they called up a first base prospect, Spencer Horwitz, and he went 1 for 20 with 15 strikeouts. Goodbye. You are not in the major leagues anymore. Over. It's not that easy with A, Brandon Belt, and B, his salary, $9.3 million, I think. Easy for me to whip around that number. It's still a lot of cash, even on a big payroll. So that creates a space where I think the Blue Jays will still give him a ton of time, because he took, 24, 26 spring at-bats. That was by design, coming back from his injury and surgery. But when pitchers are throwing harder than ever, and you're moving to a new division with new pitchers who you have not seen, this is still spring training for Brandon Belt. That's not ideal, but I think it is. And when you look at him these next few weeks, honestly, I think the Blue Jays would be happy just with some signs of life, because they really want him around. Like, they paid up for Brandon Belt, a little more than I thought they would. And given his track record, given his postseason experience, there is still such a chance that we're talking 5 months from now, Brandon Belt since July 1st is hitting blah, 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 which would be great, but the games up until July 1st matter as well. So you need to pick up a few of those. This is, I think, going to be a much more interesting look at patience as a whole with the Blue Jays. If we talk about Berrios, another great example. Berrios will be an example. Relievers will be an example. This team is so close, and they know how much every win matters. I think you might see a bit of a quicker trigger than we've seen in the past. But Brandon Belt, just that name alone carries some weight. So I think he's got a long run to go, but is not pointed in the right direction yet whatsoever, because
No.
if he was hitting what he's hitting with a lot of hard ground balls, that's one thing, but that's a lot of whiffs. Ooh, that's a lot of whiffs. So that one's got to turn around quickly, because if he can hit, this lineup is crazy. If he's not going to hit, you've got to find something, or maybe a young guy.
Right.
Yeah, he looks as comfortable as I would be up there, and I'm making significantly less. Dulcimeris is watching at home on YouTube. Belt's career numbers for March and April are generally not very good. May is where he historically heats up. The only other time of the year he's hotter is September, October, and I guess that remains to be seen. But Keegan, before we let you go here, I'm going to hit you with some rapid fire questions. Very, very short answer. One word if you can, and then we'll let you get on out of here. Yeah. All right. So, which prospect do we see up first?
Zulueta.
Do you want to go and maybe say when?
Zulueta could be as early as next month, and I'd have Barger pretty close up there as well. Barger will be a good example of patience being different now, I think.
Right. Okay. Is Matt Chapman in his final year as a Blue Jay?
Yes.
Is his replacement already in the organization?
Probably. Betting odds, favorite Addison Barger, Aurelvis Martinez, if he figures out how to put balls in play, but I'd say yes.
Yeah. All right. Where was I here? Sorry, lost it here. Fill in the blank. Brandon Belt's main purpose on this team is
good vibes. Soon enough, it'll be good base, good hitting. But for now, after leadership, good vibes.
$9 million vibes. All right. The most surprising leader on this team is.
Ooh, I want to go through this lineup and give you a real one here. Matt Chapman, and I think some people see this, but way more than even I appreciated last year. Big time Matt Chapman. And Kevin Gausman on the pitcher side. Gausman he's a different cat. You stand in the clubhouse the day of a Kevin Gausman start, they are playing slow jam Led Zeppelin. They are playing a ton of old 70s music, a lot of Fleetwood Mac on the clubhouse. It's a very, you're hanging out in the basement, that 70s show style. So you don't expect the rah-rah from him, but Kevin Gausman, sneaky leader.
Interesting. Okay. The most entertaining interview subject is?
Oh, most entertaining interview subject is Kevin Kiermaier, because at a certain point you have to stop him. He is a man with limitless energy and a lot of thoughts on a lot of things, which as a writer, good.
All right. Okay. So how many times have you got lost in his eyes and tell the truth?
I avoid all eye contact.
Fair enough. All right. Will Kevin Biggio be with the Blue Jays by the end of the season?
Yes. Yes.
Will the Blue Jays win the American League East?
Yes.
Will their playoff run be longer than last year?
Oh, God.
Better be. Better be. Can't be worse.
I think that's a unanimous answer. Yeah.
Just how bad that was. So it better be, or some things will change.
Right. Okay. And last one here. The one renovation/change you're hoping to see in the press area.
Ooh, in the press area. Let me get selfish. It's all about food, of course. I rank road trips solely based on my hotel, which bar is close to it, and the press box food. Yankee Stadium, the champagne of press box food. So I get selfish with that. In Toronto, we view the field from the left field foul pole, which is just the reality of how it works now. But man, oh man, I'll be happy to be back in there, back around my people. But let me tell you, I'm a man of ethics, but I can be bought with the right facts. Journalism.
So air conditioning doesn't matter.
It's got to be air conditioned. It's got to
Okay.
be. It's already getting to the bad season here. I only get about a week of the season. We were down in it's already the point of the year where I don't know where I was. St. Louis and Kansas City. And Schneider would walk by every day and say, Keegs, I respect it. Bear Guards, we've got to get some Vaseline like you're a left guard in the NFL. And I said, Schneider's like, men like you and I, this is the 1 week of the season we can look good. After this, it's just red faces and dry shirts in the locker, man.
It's relatable for sure. We got to get you down here in Nova Scotia, Keegan. It's starting to warm up, but it's not bad, buddy. It's not bad. So, yeah. All right. Well, that brings us to the end, Keegan. I want to thank you so much, as always. You're very generous with your time, and I do appreciate that. And all the best to you, buddy.
Anytime at all.
Thank you.
I'll take care of you when you come to Pittsburgh.
Dig it. I'm in.
Get the contact from Shaun, and I'll take care of you.
All righty.
All right. Thanks again, Keegan. We'll take care, buddy.
All righty.
All right. And that was Keegan Matheson of MLB.com. Lots of great insight, as always, and great conversation there. Thank you to everybody for tuning in, and a special thank you to Keegan as well. And that's it. Episode 328 is in the books. I want to thank Karen and Steve for joining us this week and helping me break down that interview with Keegan. Lots of great questions there. So thank you both for taking your time as well. And I know, Steve, you weren't exactly feeling the greatest, so I do appreciate it, buddy.
When you're my age, if you can inhale and then exhale, you're having a pretty good day. So.
All right. It's good to know that the bar gets lower as I get older. That's good. That's good. All right. Steve, let everybody know we've got the On Fact Circle coming up tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Let everybody know what you got cooking there.
Well, on the Feckless Wonder is I'm wondering why the Blue Jays still refuse to retire Dave, Steve, and Carlos Delgado's number. And I bring it up now because the Braves, in an obvious PR move to help the case of Andrew Jones, who should be in the Hall of Fame already, to help his case coming on. Now he's going to have the retirement. They're going to do a lot of things with him as far as moving him around, getting him interviewed. So I don't understand why Blue Jay fans are not more upset about Steve and Delgado basically being dismissed every time that they come up on the thing. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about how the Blue Jays cannot slug and hit their way to a World Series. We're going to break it down outside the box score, and we're going to take a look at some early warning signs that we need to pay attention to.
Excellent. It's going to be a great show. Anytime you mention Carlos Delgado, I'm in. I have a statue already picked out. I've already got it picked out. It's gonna actually replicate his incredibly gorgeous swing. I'm still working with an engineer on how to make that happen, but I'm talking out of my rear end. All right, Karen, Thursday, sunny side of the dome, 6 p.m. Eastern time. What have you got ready for us on Thursday?
Right. So just circling back a little bit, you mentioned incredibly gorgeous and Carlos Delgado. I thought you were going to say his smile, but he really has a beautiful smile. Yes, the sunny side of the dome on Thursday. So no surprise, a bit of an alternate viewpoint to what Steve is doing, which is fine. I'm looking at the Never Say Die Blue Jays. 10 games into 162, and we've already had a couple of comeback wins when it really didn't look like they were going to do anything. And I mean, I don't stop watching, but I'd given up that they were going to win that game. And the players don't give up. They go out there and they give absolutely everything that they have. And when we don't think that they can win, well, they do. So lots to look at.
And that's why I love Jays from the Couch. We have so much to offer, so much and so many different, I guess, perspectives. And this week is a perfect example of that with Keegan on the main podcast and then the On-Fec Circle and Sunny Side of the Dome this week. Lots of great Blue Jays coverage as well on our written page, jaysfromthecouch.com. So we've got a lot of content coming up at you, lots of Blue Jays coverage. So consider buying us a cup of coffee and support the work that we do here at Jays from the Couch. We would be forever grateful. As well, don't forget our ALS campaign. We are aiming to get rid of, to make this disease a thing of the past. You can donate or you can buy some swag, and all of the profits go to ALS Society of Canada. Steve's sporting a nice hat there. So please consider helping us out in that regard. All right, so that brings us to the end of episode 328. For Keegan Matheson, for Steve, for Karen, and let's see, why not, for Brandon Belt. This is Shaun Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at Doyle JFtC, hoping life gives you a juicy fastball down the middle and you don't miss it.
Like Brandon Belt.